So the idea is that I'm going to spend a little bit of time trying to pick up every single Filipino I have. A couple different people, Brian Rickard, James Zeef. They're trying to work out a database on what all existed from the Philippines. And to be honest, I've never actually just pulled out every single Filipino I have to test that theory. So I will be working on that today because I have quite a few. I have quite a few. So I'm going to dig in and see what I can find. Found a biggie right away. Um, this is the National Bookstore 101. And some think this might be the biggest key. I don't know. But it's a big key. Another big key. This is definitely the biggest Copper Age key out of the Philippines. And it was even number one. It started with the number one. This is a huge book. Of course, anyone that knows anything knows this is probably one of the rarest, if not the hardest, Spider-Man 300s in existence. You know, need a chromium variant? All you need is money. You got it. Need a Filipino? You could have all the money in the world. If you don't have a buying opportunity, you ain't gonna have it. Filipinos, man. And of course, this one is a huge book. This is the Alomar, Star Wars. It's got a yellow banner instead of a green. It's got, this is different here, this little call out, I believe. This one was drawn on. As a child, Glenn Martyr drew on this and even tried to color it green. What were you thinking, Glenn? He was a kid. He was loving his books. And I love this book. I love the fact that I have the history of it. It's, you know, of course, not the best conditioned Alomar Star Wars 1, but I don't care. The fact that it was sold to me by the guy that had it since he was a child makes a difference. This is a huge book, too. And extremely difficult to find. It's a cool Filipino. Okay, I think I found all my Filipinos, which is a decent little stack. Not all of these have Filipinos because of the way I bag and board. Some of them are doubled, some of them are not. So James and Brian, let's keep track of what I have here. So this would be the first. This first DC Tarzan. 207. This is a National Bookstore. What's interesting about this one is they left. Normally, National Bookstore would pop those circles out. This one did not. Didn't take that circle out. It's kind of a rough copy. Look at that right there. That damage there. But all in all, presents very nicely. The biggest difference between this and the American is along the spine here. The DCs at this time usually had some writing of some sort. This one, unlike the American, does not. So that would be the only way from the front to be able to tell that this is a National Bookstore. These issues are funky because if you're not looking, you will fuck up. And we oftentimes wonder how many National Bookstore books, particularly DCs, that they decided not to do this to, are sitting in comic book backstock. Let me take out the back. So this is the back. So the only way you'd be able to tell is if you could pull out the back. This particular ad is one of the nicer ones. It's got the store branches. And it's printed by Cacho Hermanos, National Bookstore. And that would be the only way to tell. Unless you really knew about the very basic writing along the side, that would be the only way to tell. Makes these books kind of complicated. Okay, so let's start going through. National Bookstore, Tarzan 207. National Bookstore, Fantastic Four 166. It's got your classic pricing stamp. On the back side is a National Bookstore Swamp Thing 14. We really don't know how early they got. We know there is some earlier Wrightson National Bookstores. But I've only seen one Wrightson National Bookstore, and it's in the collection of Tim Bildhauser. So, Swampy 14, FF 166, both National Bookstore. Here's another National Bookstore DC. You'll notice it's got the price blanked out. This is the 211 World's Finest. And what we like to call these that have the prices knocked out but do not have the stamp. So they didn't put a stamp. So, like this FF, there's a stamp in there, right? So they stamped both the DC and the Marvels. The stores did that, in store, I believe. When they're not stamped, we like to call them virgins. They never got a stamping. They exist as they do when they came off the press. So this is World's Finest 211, National Bookstore. Here's a National Bookstore Marvel Team Up 45. I don't know what's on the other end. Yeah, it's not one. National Bookstore Marvel Team Up 45. This is also a separate color. We've noticed some art differences with some of the National Bookstores. This one, the normal American edition, actually I believe has a black background. This one's green. Interesting color choice. National Bookstore Sandman 1. You will see on this one, it is not a virgin. Notice it got a stamping. Most of the time they got stampings. But every now and then you can find a virgin, and it's pretty cool when you do. So National Bookstore Sandman 1, National Bookstore Jonah Hex 26, or it's Weird Western Tales 26 presents. It almost looked like they wrote the pricing in there, but because it's not a stamp, and I'm still going to call this one a virgin. Maybe this one is like, the girl or the guy got a hand job, and they're not a virgin. But they actually haven't had sex yet. This one, kind of the same deal. See kind of like a price written into there. Brave and the Bold, number 100. This is a National Bookstore, and I'm going to call it a virgin. I don't have anything. There's another virgin, Weird War Tales 30. I've always liked this cover. This is a cool cover. I love Weird War. Did they make a number 1? I don't think so, but God, that'd be cool if they did. Well, the back doesn't have. Okay. These are not National Bookstores. These are more modern books. But these are Universal Bookstore Filipinos. You'll see the Filipino price stamp in there, number 17. These were printed. Universal Bookstore in the Philippines was like their Hastings. Okay? So like their Hastings, they carried comics, books, everything. And these were printed for those stores. So these are modern Filipino variants. Not variants, editions. Sorry, I'm drinking beer today. Kind of cool. Modern Universal Bookstore, similar to Spawn is also a Universal Bookstore, the Filipino Spawn. Oh shoot, and I forgot to get that. Ah, man. So I am missing that one. I tried to get all of them, and I just can't remember. Again, you'll see the Filipino price. You'll see the Filipino pricing. These are modern Filipino editions. This is a really rough book. This is, I forget the number on this. I don't remember. It's a Bronze Age Daredevil. And these are the Goodwills because they did not have the numbering. Goodwill would put in their own special date code, And sometimes those numbers on Marvels had letters, and I'm not quite sure. You know it's a Goodwill because of the date code, and most of the Goodwills, if not all of them, had Goodwill bookstore ads on the back. This has the Goodwill bookstore ad, or sometimes on the back they would have JMC Press ads. So this is a Goodwill Daredevil, I forget the number. This is a National Bookstore Marvel's Greatest, 64. And rough as hell. Lionel P. Aguinaldo was the owner of this book. This is one of the different, the other National Bookstore ads. It's not nearly as pretty as the other one that's got the pictures of the stores. But I think this is, when they have these back ads, they're newer, not older, I think. This is a really rough one. But it's a Filipino. And because of that, because they're so rare, this is probably the rarest edition of this Marvel's Greatest 64 in existence. This is a really rough Hulk 196 National Bookstore. We've had oftentimes wondered if a 181 National Bookstore existed, what something like that could be worth. That'd be crazy. I don't think so, though. I think this might have been the first Marvel Hulk 196. I've never seen one. I personally have not seen one newer, older than 196 National Bookstore. So, yep. 196. Here's a National Bookstore 134, Daredevil. Pretty rough book. You'll see that they, in this case, National Bookstore put an actual price stamp in there. Maybe some of those virgins had stamps and the stamps just fell off. Maybe at certain stores they did not do stamping. Maybe that's why virgins exist at all. I don't know. But yeah, Daredevil 134, National Bookstore. This is an interesting one. This is from Beyond the Unknown. It's kind of a similar situation. You got the DC nomenclature in there, first in comics, best in comics, DC Circle, and it's got the price. Except there is a problem. If this book were to be in backstock, you might not realize that this is a Filipino edition. Number 18, from Beyond the Unknown. Why is that? Because the front doesn't show much of a difference at all, if at all. Okay, so the front, like I said, doesn't show much difference. Put it on the back, though. And there you go. How many of these books are hiding out in comic stores? I'm thinking a bunch in backstock, and there's people, store owners, and I mean, there's probably even customers of LCS's that have bought bookstore books and did not realize that they were bookstore books, and maybe they took them home and they never even took them out of the bag and board, and they're just hiding in their collections now. So, you know, that's one thing about some of these Filipinos, particularly the national bookstores. Some of them could very easily be hiding out in backstock. Okay, so that's that one. From Beyond the Unknown, number 18. We have here a National Bookstore Batman 270. Very rough and beat up. And it has the different National Bookstore back ad. Again, this is the Batman 270. Here's the Alomar Star Wars 1. Alomars have an Alomar ad in the back. I don't remember what's on the back. Let me show you the Alomar ad. I had a few other Alomars. I actually had probably at one time the biggest collection of Filipino editions in the States, I think. And I slowly traded, gave away tons of Filipino books. I'm not doing that anymore, but there for a while I just used them as gifts. Kind of crazy. Let me show you the back of the Alomar Star Wars 1. God, I hate that glare. So the back of Alomar's, and Alomar's took even the numbering and the pricing out. Your peso always buys more at Alomar's. So you end up with the Alomar ad on the back. That's how you know the difference with Alomar's. Now this book, though, definitely is different than your traditional Star Wars 1. So if this was in backstock, of course, someone would figure it out. They'd see the emptiness up there and they would know. But this is a cool book. And it is the Alomar. Another bookstore out of the Philippines. So, that is the Alomar Star Wars 1. We have our National Bookstore Weird Western 12, which I believe is the third appearance of Jonah Hex. And this is a really nice one. And we end up with the blank circle. And this is the nicest copy of this edition that I've ever seen. It's a beautiful one. I don't have one on the back. But yeah. National Bookstore Weird Western 12. Filipino Atlas. Atlas was the publisher. Filipino Atlas 300. Extremely tough book to find. Probably the most rarest one of the 300s. Here is a National Bookstore Iron Fist 4. Does a 1 exist? Does a first Sabretooth exist? Be super cool, but I don't know if it does. Here we have our Fantastic Four National Bookstore. What's the number on this one? 167. Not a bad copy. It's got your stamp in there. FF 167 National Bookstore and Iron Fist 4. Here is the National Bookstore X-Men 101. Some could argue the biggest key so far that we've found. I'm not sure on that, but it's a pretty big deal. And also the National Bookstore X-Men 98. All new, all different, baby. Yep. Both very nice copies. And you have your classic stamp. Another classic stamp. It's a little different than that one that's like circular. This one's kind of nice because it didn't have a stamp, but some idiot wrote in there. I don't know who did that. Very cool book. So 101 and 98. Here is a Goodwill Avengers. I think it's 102. The guy someone wrote 102 in there. This is a Goodwill. This is a Goodwill that's got along with the numbering, has a letter. I've never seen that with DCs. I've only seen it with Marvels, which is kind of interesting. So Avengers 102, Goodwill. And then here is your Reaper, first Reaper. I forget the numbering on the Batman. It's in December. And this is a Goodwill. A nice Goodwill by that token. Here is the Daredevil 132. I think this is the second Bullseye. I've heard that a first Bullseye does exist, so it's definitely a minor key. Well, depending on how big Bullseye might get later. This is the National Bookstore 132. And this is one I really enjoy. This is the House of Secrets 103, Classic Rights and Cover, National Bookstore. And there you have it. That's all of them except for my Spawn. I did have my Spawn Universal, but I forgot to get that out. But that takes you through some of the bookstore books. And Brian and James, that's all that I have left. I have since then bought more. Oh, and I'm missing one. Yeah, there was one. Okay, yeah, I know there was one that was missing. Over here. On the back. Wasn't the weird war, I don't think. No. On the back of this one. There you go. I knew I was missing one. So there's also a GI Combat 156. National Bookstore. I like this one because check out the kind of, it's almost got like a Japanese red sun. And again, another virgin. GI Combat National Bookstore 156. That is all of them now. And of course, the Spawn Universal, but we know of that one already. So, I probably no longer have the largest Filipino collection in the States, but that's okay. Just having that at one point in time, I think I have quite a few. And I hope you learned a little bit of something from here, as well as James and Brian having, if any of those issues aren't in your databases, put them in there, and there you have it. Those are Matt's Filipino editions in his collection. Define 999 is out of here.